mentioned this before, but Netflix does a pretty great job of getting the word out about their high-profile movies, and a terrible job of letting people know about their smaller releases. So this is probably the best movie of the year that you haven't heard of. But hey, you can watch it now. It's right there on Netflix. And you should. It's a thoroughly delightful character study, anchored by an absolutely amazing performance from Mei Kayama, a first-time actress with cerebral palsy who absolutely knocks it out of the park. Her character is almost ridiculously endearing, and it's basically impossible not to be won over by her journey. 37 Seconds is definitely a crowd pleaser of a film, but it never feels overly precious or manipulative. A lot of the emotional beats in the third act could have felt cloying under a lesser filmmaker, but here it's all completely earned. Yeah, director Osgood Perkins is serious business, no doubt about it. While I don't think this is quite as perfect as his previous film, I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House, it's still a beguiling, abundantly stylish film that takes a familiar story and does something special with it. It's also admirably weird, considering that it got a wide theatrical release. And remember theaters? That place where you could go and watch a movie on a giant screen surrounded by strangers without worrying about dying? Anyway, I don't know how this odd movie managed to get made and get the release that it did, but I'm certainly not going to complain about it. Like with I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House, Perkins does an amazing job of setting up an atmosphere of slow burn tension and dread, and imbues the film with an impressive amount of style. Tenet might be Christopher Nolan's most divisive film, which I totally get. Between his enveloping style and the overly convoluted narrative, it's a movie that's very easy to be put off by if you're not on its wavelength. It's a Christopher Nolan film, and it absolutely feels like a Christopher Nolan film, with an expansive cinematic sweep, some seriously memorable set pieces, and a riveting sense of propulsive energy. It's a spy movie, a genre that leans towards being confusing and convoluted even in the best of times, and then the film adds on a layer of time-bending insanity that's so dense and complex it gives Primer a run for its money, which means that it's basically game over on any hope of understanding it on the first viewing. Early on in the film, a character explains away the time-bending mumbo-jumbo by saying, "Don't try to understand it, feel it," which is a pretty blatant directive from Nolan to the audience. You will not understand this, but does it matter? There's a bit more character development here than there was in Dunkirk, but Nolan has continued that film's emphasis on visceral storytelling through action and urgent style over traditional plot and character beats. It's basically impossible to follow on first viewing, but the experience of watching it is so enjoyable that it almost doesn't matter. Escape from Pretoria is a prison escape movie, and for the first 15 minutes or so, before the main characters wind up in prison and start hatching their escape, it's just okay. However, once they're locked up and begin their planning, which is pretty much as soon as they arrive in prison, the film takes off like a rocket and never lets up. Prison escapes are inherently exciting, of course, and the film does a great job of taking interesting subject matter and executing it with gusto. First-time director Francis Annan immediately establishes himself as a talent to watch. The movie is expertly directed, with a nice dose of style, a great sense of pacing, and a handful of sequences that are legitimately tense. It's also quite well acted. In particular, Daniel Radcliffe and Daniel Webber are both great in the two main roles, and ensure that you're always rooting for the prisoners to succeed. Speaking of impressive first films, 7500 is Patrick Vollrath's debut feature, and the fact that he succeeds so thoroughly is particularly impressive considering the restraints he places on himself here. The movie takes place entirely inside the cockpit of a plane. Vollrath manages to wring a surprising amount of tension from the one-location concept. There's a hijacking, and it gets underway almost immediately, and the film's delightfully escalating intensity pretty much doesn't let up until the end credits roll. Of course, this is a film that asks quite a bit of its lead actor, and Joseph Gordon-Levitt pulls it off with aplomb. His engaging performance is a big reason why the film works as well as it does. After 2020's entertaining but thoroughly unremarkable Onward, Pixar have proven that they've definitely still got it. Like the best Pixar films, Soul is funny, exciting, and packs an emotional wallop. It also has a surprisingly insightful message about the way we live our lives and what's really important, one that hit me harder than I would have expected. It's directed by Pete Docter, who has quietly become one of the great directors, with his short but almost ridiculously impressive filmography consisting of Monsters, Inc., Up, Inside Out, and now Soul. There's so much good stuff here, from the visually dazzling portrayal of the afterlife to the memorable characters, and of course that ineffable Pixar charm. Sometimes there's nothing that hits the spot like a really good action movie, and Lost Bullet definitely fits the bill. This is yet another first film on this list, and like the others, it's a hell of a debut. It's competently made, nicely paced, and features a handful of legitimately amazing action set pieces. In particular, there's a brawl in a police station that is absolutely electric. It's easily one of the better action scenes I've seen in a while. There's also a car chase involving a car equipped with a giant claw that features more enjoyable car mayhem than anything from a movie with Fast or Furious in the title. The film is anchored by a great central performance from Alban Lenoir, who easily has the charisma and take no prisoners physicality to carry an action movie like this. The plot is fairly generic, but the film is exciting enough and executed with enough panache that this never feels like a big deal. Hey, what do you know? It's another director's first movie on this list. First-timer Max Barbachow's direction is pitch perfect. He brings the film a peppy sense of style and paces it like a pro. This is a movie that knows exactly when to crank up the hijinks and when to slow things down and let us get to know the characters. It runs at a tight 90 minutes that simultaneously feels trimmed of all fat and that also has room to breathe. No small feat. The film is a Groundhog Day-esque time loop movie, which has become a well-worn genre at this point, but Palm Springs still manages to do something that feels abundantly fresh and fun. It helps that Andy Samberg and Kristen Milioti are both great in the main roles and have an almost absurd amount of chemistry. The movie is everything you want it to be. It's super entertaining, it's laugh-out-loud funny, and it's surprisingly poignant. If you need any evidence that Hollywood's wholesale abandonment of traditional, hand-drawn animation is a travesty, Wolfwalkers should be Exhibit A. This is an almost absurdly gorgeous film, but of course, it's so much more than just a showcase for amazing style and animation. The movie is from Cartoon Saloon, a studio who have quickly established themselves as a premier producer of traditionally animated films that are as powerful as they are beautiful. Wolfwalkers is absolutely crammed with personality, with a whole bunch of memorable characters, and a narrative that's exciting, heartfelt, and thoroughly engaging. The Invisible Man is kind of like an amazing cross between a 90s thriller, a haunted house movie, and a monster movie, which are three genres I never knew I wanted to be fused, but that clearly go together like peanut butter and chocolate. Between this and Upgrade, it's abundantly clear that writer-director Leigh Whannell is the real deal. This is one of those rare movies where there isn't a single false note. It's just so well made from top to bottom, with a memorable group of characters, a great concept that's executed perfectly, and some seriously memorable set pieces. It's stylish, but never in a flashy way. The style always works to perfectly underline what the film is doing. Whannell also does a pretty brilliant job of shifting tones. Some of the earlier scenes have the nerve-jangling tension of a great ghost movie, but things get broader and more action-packed towards the end, and it works just as well. And of course, special mention has to go to Elizabeth Moss, who's perfect in the main role. The character could have come off as one-note manic under a lesser actress, but Moss absolutely nails it, bringing a ton of depth to the role. And now, without comment, here's my bottom 10, set to a tuba cover of Elton John's Can You Feel the Love Tonight?